Hello everyone, Nihilo here. Today I want to give some thoughts about how I think IGN is one of, if not the best, game sites today, and how I think it deserves, both financially and personally, its viewers. It's a butt of many jokes, sure. You can't spell ignorant without IGN, which actually I believe that phrase was made up by the IGN editors mocking itself, and IGN, 10 out of 10. But I feel, especially in light of the GamerGate controversy, that IGN has remained quite fair in its work. For example, for the Call of Duty Advanced Warfare review, IGN refused to give a score until they had played the game outside of the publisher-made review event, where journalists are, essentially, wine and dined whilst playing the game in ideal network situations. But they went against the allure of putting a score out quickly, thereby getting clicks from those who just want the score, in order to be more or less unbiased and put themselves in a consumer environment. So, I want to make a side note about these events in GamerGate. On videogamer.com, at the top of their Advanced Warfare review, the editor notes the reason for their earlier than expected review. They were not given a review embargo because they did not attend the event or get an early copy of the game, through Activision anyway. Publishers, in this case, hold the cards, and it disappoints me that we're not putting a bigger force behind stopping these policies. Journalists are at the mercy of the publisher, as release day reviews are obviously important to publish. But yeah, back to IGN. One issue I've seen people bring up about IGN is how corporatized the news company seems. After digging deeper, however, I don't think this holds water. I think people, and myself as well, mistook professionalism for being corporate suits without personalities. But I went to go listen, and I urge you to go listen to Podcast Beyond or Nintendo Voice Chat or the Podcast Unlocked podcast for some good views and personalities. While not as conversational as Giant Bomb, I really got a sense of passion and professionalism from the likes of Jose Otero, Brian Altano, Colin Moriarty, and others. So I think this is an unfair view of IGN. I think they're just more professional, and we mistake that. So this professionalism, I think, ties back into GamerGate. A myriad of letters to the editor appeared on several sites where the sites essentially called GamerGate a hate group and denounced it all for being misogynistic. IGN followed this with their letter. I want to go over some excerpts. So here, the editor-in-chief, Steve Butts, points out how some harassment has come from the movement, GamerGate. But he uses fair language and puts radicals instead of just blaming the group, unlike other letters to the editor. In the next part here, Steve talks about how IGN had several debates on the topic where no decisions were made. They decided to remain silent on the issue as there was a real debate about GamerGate and its claims. This shows that Steve and the IGN heads were not going to polarize to one side and decided that a clear-cut decision could not be made. They took into account the differing opinions, which I believe is quite admirable. So he then brings up how the threats were not a huge deal for IGN because they were elsewhere. They also, and I think rightfully so, believed they would only cause more issues if they brought more exposure to the topic. This is, in my opinion, better for Brianna Wu because it keeps a spotlight off her. Does she want her death threats to be publicized and to get more from copycats? But of course, she's shown her disgust with IGN's handling just recently on David Pakman's show, which I think brings into question her true motives. It's obviously not about just harassment, it's about getting a spotlight on her. Then they do here what I think is their duty. They denounce all of the harassment, which is in no conflict with either side because they don't try and label the entire movement as a hate-mongering group. They just say, hey, harassment's wrong. And I think everybody agrees. They're being very neutral. And in his conclusion, I think this is the best part of the entire letter, Steve makes an amazing stance. He says the discussion is valuable and that should be encouraged while also denouncing the harassment. And he makes a major ethical statement at the end. Them listening to the discussion may not put them in the New York Times, but that's a trade-off they are willing to make. This culminates, I think, into a very good legitimization for IGN being the leading games journalism site. They're not quick to push the agenda. They do their job, and they're full of differing opinions that are all heard. More so, however, they deserve customers because they're a smart business. They have professionalism. They don't demonize a sizable amount of gamers, and they make it clear that they care about the industry they cover. They are gamers. And they also understand that there are different opinions. And they encourage a dialogue that the opposition says it wants but won't have. So I think looking at all this, I've come to the conclusion that IGN is the best we have in the mainstream games media. And to be quite honest, I'm very happy with that. And I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts on that. So yeah, thank you.